This one's always a fun video to make. Let's go ahead and rank every championship captain. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel and to another tier list video. I really enjoy making these sort of videos, so if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. If we get it 300 likes, we'll get the next tier list video coming out sooner rather than later. But today I thought we had quite the interesting concept to dive into. We are going to be ranking championship captains. Now, it's an important distinction that I have to make off the bat of this video. We are ranking them on sort of leadership ability and their abilities as a captain. So we're not ranking these players in terms of their footballing abilities and things like that. That's not really been taken into consideration here. So I want to know from your club and your captain, where would you place them on this particular tier list? But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. So here is today's tier list, and these are the captains of each championship club that we are going to be ranking. In terms of the tiers that we're going to be putting them into, I must give a shout out to James Lawrence Alcott, who is basically the GOAT of football tier lists on YouTube. I took a couple of these tier list categories from his Premier League captains ranking videos, but the one we're going to be putting them into are vice captain at best, age before leadership, does the job, proper leader, and captain leader legend. So those are the sort of different criteria that we're going to be judging these championship captains by. And off the bat straight away, we'll go for Thomas Kalas, because I've already realised that I made a mistake when I was actually making this tier list. So Kalas was Bristol City's captain from last season, but I think that at the start of this season it was actually changed for Bristol City, and Daniel Bentley was instead named as the captain. I sort of went off Wikipedia for all this, so blame them for me getting that wrong. I found it quite interesting though, the whole story behind this, and Kalas sort of admitted himself that he didn't feel that captaincy was actually right for him. And he said in an interview he did with some of the local journos that he felt like his individual performances were actually affected by him having the captain's armband. So by his own admission, I'd probably have to say vice captain at best. Obviously that's no knock on him as a player. Some people just aren't quite suited out for the armband. But if I did have Daniel Bentley in here, I'd probably put him into that sort of does the job category. Obviously still quite early on in his captaincy with Bristol City. Next up then, let's go for Stefan Johansson, because he's quite an interesting one at QPR. Obviously just signed for QPR on a permanent basis in the summer, and already has been given that captain's armband. And initially I was a little bit like, I'm not too sure about this, you know, is this a case of sort of age before leadership? You know, there's quite a few young players in that QPR squad, but the more you watch QPR, the more you see how vocal he actually is on the pitch and the things he does off the ball as well. The fact that he's been captain of his country as well, I think you've got to throw him into that proper leader category, to be fair to him, don't you? Another one that I think I'd throw into that proper leader category would be Sonny Bradley. Preston are hosting Luton at Deepdale this weekend in the Championship, and I remember Luton coming to Deepdale a couple of years ago, and you could very much tell that Bradley was the leader in that side, especially in that back line. You know, it's the stereotypical thing really with, you know, one of your centre-halves being the most sort of vocal player in the team, and I certainly think that Luton are a better side with Sonny Bradley in it, and he has been one of those players to make that step up and adapt from their League One days. So yeah, definitely proper leader for me in Sonny Bradley. Next up then, let's go for Liam Moore, and I'm a little bit split on where to put Liam Moore, to be honest with you, because I think that when his performances are good and he's sort of like on top of his game, then he can shine through in a captain's sense in those sort of moments. But when his form dips a little bit, I think that's where he struggles a little bit with the armband as well. And you also look into some of the other players that Reading have in that squad. You know, they've just got, you know, Scott Dan, who's been Crystal Palace's captain for God knows how long. Morrison, who I also feel like is a real leader in that dressing room as well. Moore's been one of those players who I've always expected to be moved on for the past couple of seasons. I think he's one of those higher earners at Reading, but it's never quite happened for him in that sense. He has had the captain's armband for quite some time now. I think that during that spell, like I say, there have been a few sort of ups and downs with it. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, I think, and I think I'll put him in that middle category in sort of does the job. I think that's fair enough, balanced on sort of all the factors taken into consideration there. Reading fans, where would you guys place Liam Moore in this list? I'm quite interested to know. Let's go for one of them in the top tier, and straight away, Billy Sharp. captain, leader, legend, absolutely no doubts about that. Not just a Sheffield United legend, but a championship one at that as well. If you watched the video we did last week on the channel where we counted down the top 150 all-time championship scorers, Billy Sharp is currently third on that list, and I think at the moment now is only 3 or 4 goals away from breaking the record, which is currently held by David Nugent. You'd expect him to go ahead and do that this season. I didn't know just how much game time he was actually going to get this season with all the sort of other options that Sheffield United had in that side, but clearly his leadership is still valued and he's still got a lot to offer on the football pitch. So yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, leader, captain, leader, legend for Billy Sharp. Next up, let's go for Sean Morrison, who I'd give the benefit of the doubt, and I would say is a proper leader. Obviously, Cardiff have gone through a bit of a difficult spell currently. I think that when I did this video last, I think about 2 or so years ago now, I also had Morrison in this proper leader category. He is one of those people that is going to be vocal on the football pitch. I think will drag people in and sort of have a word with them if they're not sort of living up to those expectations. And I'm expecting whoever the new Cardiff manager that does come in is going to want to lean on Morrison a little bit for that sort of experience and know-how he has in the Championship. Next up, let's go for Cauley Woodrow at Barnsley, who I'm struggling with where to place, to be honest with you, because obviously he's recently been named the Barnsley captain after Alex Moat's departure in the summer. It's a very young squad at Barnsley, and Woodrow, even though he's not that old himself, is probably one of the more experienced pros in that dressing room, and I can't help but feel like maybe is this a case of sort of age before leadership, Barnsley picking one of those older players. He does seem like a bit more of a reserved character compared to some of the other players that we've got on this list here today, and that's not necessarily a bad thing even for a captain. You know, you can be one of those people who are a little bit more, you know, sort of to themselves and lead by example, and those sort of things as well. And I read an interview by him when he basically admitted that really, you know, he doesn't want to be one of those captains that is sort of shouting and screaming at people, but because that's the case, he's a tough one to judge at the moment, and out of all the categories I've got there, maybe it is a case of age before leadership, but Barnsley fans, you can let me know if I'm wrong on that one in the comments down below. Another one who I think I'd throw into age before leadership would probably be Lewis Grabban, to be honest with you. Listen, he's had a second lease of life under Steve Cooper so far, and long may it continue, because we all know that Lewis Grabban is a fantastic striker and in the top 10 championship goal scorers of all time, actually. But in terms of a leader out on the pitch, I'm not sure Grabban's for me, if I'm honest with you. From the times that I've seen him live and in the flesh, he is not the most inspiring of players, maybe. You know, he is quite static in his movement. You know, if we think a lot of the time he is one of those people who will just wait for those sort of chances to come to him, and I'm not expecting the captain to be running around the pitch like a headless chicken or anything like that, but I think there's a couple other people in that Forest dressing room maybe that could have got that captaincy before Grabban, but that's just my opinion that I'm throwing it out there. Next up, let's go for Jake Livermore. I'd have to throw him into that proper leader category. I think that captaining West Brom to their promotion last time around in the Championship, he was absolutely brilliant. Obviously, he got himself back into the squad this time around as well, and yeah, no doubts about that from me. I think that you see it when he's on the pitch, when he gives an interview after the match as well. Proper leader for me in Jake Livermore. Let's go for Harley Dean at Birmingham next. He's one who I struggle with a little bit, because similar to Liam Moore at Reading, is someone who has had quite a few highs and lows throughout his Birmingham career, and especially in terms of the Birmingham captaincy. And I think that some Birmingham fans are probably swayed in their opinions on Harley Dean, and he's another player who I think is quite affected by his form and how that actually impacts his leadership out on the pitch. And I can't help but feel like now Troy Deeney's in that squad, I mean, he's the leader in that team now, isn't he? So I feel like with Troy Deeney in that squad now, that sort of demotes Harley Dean down to vice captain at best. Birmingham fans, would you have any pushback on that? Let me know down below. Let's go ahead and throw another one into that captain, leader, legend category. And I mean, Steve Cook's looking at me there, and I think we're going to have to throw him into that top tier, aren't we? He's closing in on 400 club appearances for Bournemouth. Now, he's been with them since the League One days, promotion from League One to the Championship, promotion from the Championship to the Premier League, and maybe another one on the way this season. He's also a captain down to a T as well, isn't he? You know, he is that vocal guy on the pitch, and I don't think that anyone's going to have any pushback with me putting him in that top category. Next up, let's go for Joe Allen, and he's another one that I'm struggling with a little bit, because I do feel like this is maybe a case of age before leadership in this one. I think he's their longest serving player now, Allen. Correct me if I'm wrong down below, Stoke fans, but he's certainly one of them that's been in that dressing room for quite some time now. He is one of their more experienced pros, and so with that, obviously, naturally, people will want to give him the captaincy and things like that. But when you watch Stoke out on the pitch, and he has been their captain a few times now, Harry Souttar is that guy for them, isn't he? Even at the young age he is. Yeah, I feel like Allen maybe was a case of age before leadership when they gave him the armband in that case. Next up, let's go for Tom Lawrence. This one's quite a difficult one, really, because Wayne Rooney gave him the captaincy when Derby didn't have really all too many people signed on to the books, but I think that Derby fans will probably admit now that the real leaders on the pitch are probably like your Curtis Davises and your Jagielkas and things like that. And while I think it was given to Lawrence the captaincy as a way to get a bit more consistency out of him, and to a certain degree, I actually think that that's worked so far. Certainly sort of in those, when he's played in number 9 so far this season, he's actually looked quite good in that position. But if we're purely judging this off leadership ability, I've got to say vice captain at best, I think. I think there are other leaders in that dressing room that probably are doing a little bit more behind the scenes, but maybe I'm totally wrong on that one. But that's just my view from the sort of outside looking in. Next up, let's go for Blackpool's Chris Maxwell. Now, I'm not a massive fan of goalkeepers being captains, I'm not going to lie. I think that your influence on the pitch when you are a goalkeeper in terms of getting involved higher up the pitch with the communications and things like that can be a little bit more limited in that sense, and certainly from his days at Preston, I didn't see Maxwell as captain material at all, to be honest with you. But I can accept that players change as they get older, and in different environments, different characteristics get brought out of players. He was Blackpool's captain in their promotion back up to the Championship as well. So given all of those factors taken into consideration, I think it's fair that I put him in the middle tier that does the job one. I think that Blackpool fans would probably have him a little bit higher than that, and Preston fans would probably have him a little bit lower than that. So I think around about in the middle for does the job for Maxwell is fair. Huddersfield Town's Jonathan Hogg, obviously he's taking up the reins of Christopher Schindler, I think, who was their most recent captain. Obviously he, I suppose, was captain lead legend with that penalty scored in the playoff final. But for Jonathan Hogg, I'd put him down as a proper leader. He is that typical sort of aggressive central midfielder who looks to get stuck in, winning the ball back and things like that, wants to be vocal and get everyone involved, and is quite an experienced pro in that sense as well. So no complaints about putting him in that category. We'll go for Alex Pearce next at Millwall, and I don't think that you can get away with being the Millwall captain for all too long if you're not at least a proper leader, and I think that Pearce is exactly that, really. Very vocal on the pitch, obviously, when Millwall have come to Deepdale in the past, and he's been that real sort of presence in that back three alongside like Hutchinson and Cooper. So yeah, at least in that proper leader category for me. Maybe not that captain leader legend that maybe like Morrison was for them a few years ago, but he's just not really played enough games for Millwall in that sense. But yeah, definitely at least in those top 2 categories. Next up, let's go for Liam Kelly at Coventry, and I mean, he's another one who I at least think is in this category. Is he captain lead legend? I mean, Coventry fans will know more about this than me, really, but his time has been a little bit interrupted, you know, at different times for injuries and stuff like that, and, you know, being sort of in and out of the side. And I definitely think that Coventry are a better team when he is in that side. He's been with them since their League 2 days now, you know, promotion from League 2 to League 1, from League 1 to the Championship. But has he played enough games for them to be captain leader legend material? I feel like he's close to it. I feel like he's very close to it, but is he there just yet? Maybe 1 or 2 more seasons at this level and he may be in that top category, but he's at least in the top 2, isn't he? I think that Coventry fans would agree with that. We're going for quite a few in this proper leader category. I think that Darragh Lenihan probably gets himself into that, to be honest with you. It was Elliot Bennett who was named as Blackburn's captain before Lenihan, and even when that was the case, he was that sort of player in that back line who I myself always saw as the sort of real leader out there on the pitch, and now he does have that armband. I think that that's more than being justified. Next up, let's go for Johnny Howson. And between these middling categories for Howson, I think I'd go does the job, to be honest with you. There was that weird time at Middlesbrough when they gave Britt Assombalonga the captain's armband, and I think that was a similar ploy to Derby giving it to Tom Lawrence this season, whereby it was Warnock sort of wanting a bit more consistency out of the player and maybe giving him the captain's armband would go ahead and do that. Obviously, in the end, that didn't really transpire, and Johnny Howson has ended up with the captain's armband. I think he does a sort of good job with it, really, to be honest with you. Richie Smallwood, another one who I'd probably put into that sort of does the job category, sort of another player who leads by example, obviously quite an experienced pro at championship level as well, now the captain of Hull City. I think has captained Blackburn previously on a few occasions as well, which is also worth flagging up. Mark Beevers at Peterborough. I'll be honest with you, he's the one player on this list who I just don't really know enough about in terms of a captaincy sense. Obviously, all of these players on this list I've seen sort of come to Deepdale in the past, and I can sort of be that sort of judge on them and see them sort of in the flesh, and you pick up on a feeling with those sort of players. With Beevers, I don't really know, to be honest with you, because obviously when Preston played Peterborough this season, I don't think he featured for them. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and put him in that does the job category, but Peterborough fans, you guys will know more than me. Where would you yourselves have him in this tier list? You'll have to let me know about that one in the comments down below. Matt Grimes, another one who I think I'd say does the job. Fairly young for a captaincy sense, maybe in terms of some of the other players that he's going up against in this particular tier list, but massive Swansea kept hold of him in this most recent summer transfer window when there was a lot of interest, and I am growing on him as a captain as the seasons go on. Next up, let's go for Preston North End's Alan Brown as our penultimate choice. Now, I really like Alan Brown. He's just made his 300th appearance for the club, which is absolutely massive. And I mean, Preston are a club who have had great leaders in the past. You know, we think back to the likes of the Paul McKennas, the Callum Davidsons, the Tom Clarks, Paul Gallagher, who's just retired. Where does Alan Brown fit into all of this? It's difficult, because had he had a few more years and maybe been that understudy to a Tom Clark or a Paul Gallagher, I feel like Brown would be in maybe a bit of a better position, because maybe similar to Thomas Callas, captaincy may have just come a little bit too quickly for him in terms of him being that main guy. I think at the moment I'm swaying towards vice captain at best, and that's not a knock on him. It's just that some people aren't quite cut out to be that captain and that main face at the club at a particular point in their career. And I feel like with Brown at the moment, since he has been given that captain's armband, his performances have probably suffered a little bit because of that, and it may be something that is weighing on him a little bit. Last of all though, let's go for Fulham's Tom Cairney, and overall I think you've got to throw him into Captain League legend. He's not a typical captain, he's a bit more of an unassuming figure, similar to someone like a Coley Woodrow maybe in terms of his personality. Like, he doesn't seem like someone who's going to be, you know, grabbing people up and screaming at them and things like that, but I don't think that a modern captain maybe goes ahead and does that. But in terms of the club appearances, in terms of the moment and how crucial he's been to their promotions in years gone by, stepping up in a playoff final when it matters most as well, Tom Cairney's got to be in Captain League legend by this point at Fulham, doesn't he? But there we have it, guys. There is my tier list for Championship captains. If I could make one move to this, who would I do? I think I'd give Alan Brown maybe the benefit of the doubt and move him up to does the job, because I do think he will be someone that sort of grows into that captaincy. It's just that at this point in time, maybe it's come a little bit too soon for him, but at this point in time, I think you could still argue that he is doing the job. You know, in that Blackpool performance, he was one of the few players who at least showed a little bit of something, despite him by no means being at the top of his game at the moment. So, I mean, for 300 appearances as well, I think I'd have to be a bit kinder to Alan Brown there. I think I would move him up to does the job. But those are my personal selections for Championship captains. Do you agree with my picks? Which players would you personally move up or down the tiers? There are a few that I could be swayed on, to be honest with you, and that I could have a little bit higher up or a little bit lower down. And you guys will obviously know a little bit more about them because you are the people that are watching them week in, week out. But as always, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Thanks for watching though, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.